I don't know, like I have parameters around what I thought love was and what it looked like and all of these things. And so the older that I got and the more that I learned and experienced the world and had my daughter, uh, that those things started to change for me. And I started to reevaluate what it meant. Um, so yeah, for me, it's like it's not stagnant, it changes for me. And I'm very aware of now, I'm very aware of the different levels of freedom, love, not just for me, but for other people.
It's bringing some of that fear back to me, and I'm questioning, like, can I do this? You know, like all these other questions, and it's taking away from my desire and my knowing that I can do this. So, even asking for letters of recommendations, are they going to support me, these professors, things like that. So I had to like really remind myself that not only can I do this, I have done many things that have set me up to be successful, in going back to school. But so I can do this, and I can do this well. Like, I've been through many experiences that I think are worth contributing towards this journey of obtaining my PhD. So I have to practice self love and be honest about how much I've done for myself to be able to get to this next level.
This is the Lirae Journey Podcast on the McKissick Health Podcast Network. I'm Dr. Sherella Cupid, your host.
The Lirae Journey Podcast is a space for Black women to choose themselves. For Season 3, the theme is Love and. We'll continue the Sister Circle conversations with Black women from different stages of life within various roles regarding personal, community, and professional. The intention of the season is to continue and start conversations on the meanings, experiences, and practices around love in numerous areas. This is our grounding season. Because Lirae means love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love.
So today we're in conversation with Dr. Michelle Taylor and PJ Pierre-Jerome. So guests, can you introduce yourselves to our listeners in a couple of sentences?
I will start. My name is Michelle Taylor. I am a recent graduate of my doctoral program. So now I'm Dr. Michelle Taylor. I am from Detroit, Michigan. My research agenda revolves around Black women's experiences in higher education, specifically Black women administrators in higher education. I feel that sometimes they are often overlooked. So that's who I focus my research on. And yeah, that's about it. I'm a mother. I'm a single mom of a 13-year-old girl. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Michelle. PJ?
Yeah, Cheryl, thanks for having us. And as far as the intros, I am a upcoming PhD student at Howard University. I will be studying communication, culture, and media. And this will be an opportunity for me to build on my master's research regarding archetypes archetypes of Black women. So I'm interested in focusing a little bit about Haitian women and the notions of who they are. And outside of school, I am a DMV native, residing in DC. I am someone that loves to travel, community member. I am a partner to my partner, who I committed to last year. And yeah, I kind of consider myself creative and intellectual and a free spirit.
Thank y'all. Appreciate the introductions. Can y'all share what brings you to the Sister Circle space?
What brings me to the space is being in community with other Black women, specifically Black women who are in academia. You don't oftentimes, especially where I am, there aren't that many Black women academics that you get a chance to meet with and just talk to and exchange ideas and laugh with, and just be with in a space that's I don't want to say free, but kind of free, right? From like the gaze of academic life and everything. So I would, so that's what brings me here, just to kind of be in community and meet new people.
Thank you. PJ?
Yeah, I would say, Sherella, you bring me here. Our relationship brings me here. And my adoration for me admiring the work you've done. Seeing you grow this podcast, and my interest in participating as a sister, as a community member, and building upon the idea of love and freedom, as sisters together.
Thank you. So, in thinking about this season of your life, right? Like you represent our start, PJ, right? And Michelle, you represent like an ending when we think about the PhD process, for example. But in many ways, too, y'all still represent similar spaces, right? PJ, like you're no longer not a student anymore, right? So it's like an end of that era. And in thinking about Michelle, now you're Dr. Taylor. So you all also commencing a new season in your life, right? So in thinking about the seasons that you're in your life, if you could title this season, what title would you give it?
So I would probably say, for me, which is kind of interesting to say, because usually when people talk about seasons of their lives, they're thinking about this very physical way, right? Like in terms of age and things like that. But I would say that either late spring or early summer. I don't know. Transition, like one of those. And I'd say that because I feel like I have something behind me that kind of has bloomed in a way. I don't know if it's where it is in its blooming process yet, but so that's why I'm like late spring, early summer. I don't know if it's a full bloom, but we're working through it. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. PJ?
By the way, how's the sound? Because I can hear stuff out in the hallway. Okay.
No, it's Zoom is doing well to cancel around. Cancel out the background. We don't hear it.
Okay, thanks. Good. Someone is doing things outside of this room, but anyways, separate from that, to answer your question, it's hard for me to say this, but I'm in the season of being mindful. There's like a new maturity that's coming upon me, and I'm a bit resistant to it. As I am shifting into this part of my career, I recognize that I have to be very mindful of how I'm conducting myself, and just in real life, online, also just for myself, how I am treating myself, if I am, feeding myself well, am I doing restorative practices, like, having good harmony in my life. So I have to be very mindful, and the like free spirit in me is just like, oh, we have to like atone and we have to like get it together. And so it's a little difficult in that way, but I understand that if I do these investments of being mindful, that is going to help me where I want to ultimately be.
So I would say that both of y'all represent the similarity of like being in spaces of transition, right?
Mhm.
Dr. Taylor, you said that late spring or early summer, like where am I in this blooming process would be the title for your season. And similarly, PJ, you said to be mindful since you are transitioning into a new academic space. So in thinking about the title that you have given to this season of your life, how are you defining love?
I think I'm defining it as acceptance and growth and openness to also being open to new ideas, new things. Um, yeah, that's how I would define it for myself and in this season. Not really um, blocking myself into a certain thing. Because sometimes I can get to that space where I'm just like, oh, I have to do this, and then whatever this is, and then I block myself into this idea. So I think for me, it's just continuing to learn, even though I'm technically outside of the learning space of being in taking courses and doing all of those things that we associate with getting through the doctoral journey. Even though I'm through that process, it's like starting another one. And so I'm making sure that keeping my mind open to continue to learn more and more and more and more. Um, yeah, so just growing in that way.
Thank you. PJ?
Yeah, I am currently defining love as self-love. Um, Applying for a PhD program did require a lot of energy from me, and this was something that I wanted for a while. I was looking at for a while. Um, um, Considering my last academic experience was quite re-traumatizing, I had a lot of fear, and I was questioning myself a lot. So when I'm looking at an application that's asking me to write a personal statement and write what my research is going to be about, these type of things, it's bringing some of that fear back to me, and I'm questioning like, can I do this? Like all these other questions, and it's taking away from my desire and my knowing that I can do this. So, even asking for letters of recommendations, are they going to support me, these professors, things like that. So I had to like really remind myself that not only can I do this, I have done many things that have set me up to be successful, in going back to school. But so I can do this, and I can do this well. Like, I've been through many experiences that I think are worth contributing towards this journey of obtaining my PhD. So I have to practice self-love and be honest about how much I've done for myself to be able to get to this next level.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, PJ?
Yeah, of course.
So when you talk about you mentioned fear as you were approaching just like the application process and your previous experiences. I mean, if you want to answer it, you don't have to. But so where do you think that fear, like, where do you think that fear is stemming from in terms of like the academic process? Like, submitting your application, writing your personal statement, asking for letters of recommendation, all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a proper question. And yeah, this will speak into some of my MA experience. I guess in a little bit of my college experience. I didn't graduate on time with my master's. I got a lot of pushback from the university that I was working with. And they told me that not only that they didn't have anyone that could support my research, um, so
Yeah.
literally no one to be a first reader on my final project. Um, but also they were I'm a person living with a disability and I require accommodations in school. And I was getting also a lot of resistance from them providing me legal accommodations.
Mhm.
So the combination of those two difficulties um, really forced me to kind of take a hiatus, and I just it was overwhelming, and it just brought a lot of history back to me. I'm a person that has lives with a disability due to a traumatic injury. And so this is the things that I need support from are acquired. I wasn't, I was I was someone who was a high performer in school, historically in high school. And then in college, I came in needing to really adjust by needing accommodations, working with um, my professors, working with the Students with Disability Center. So that was a new world for me. And luckily, as an undergraduate and the institution I went to, I got a lot of support. So going back into my master's program, there was none of that. So I'm going into this um, also with new eyes. In between my undergraduate and my master's program, I traveled, I served in the Peace Corps. So I also had developed a lot personally. So I was eager to come back to school. I had a lot to say, I had a lot to take in myself. And then I'm just getting these like walls that you're severely disabled, we can't accommodate you. The more female, the more Black my research became, it was just like, we have no professors that can support this. And it felt like school has it's just been a place where I can highly perform and I can be safe. I can feel seen even. And so then I'm in my master's program knowing that like this is what I want to be doing and I'm excited, and then it's just being shut down in all these other ways. So that was really, like I said, re-traumatizing, and it's just like I had to question, could I continue? Can I complete this program? And luckily, I jumped into long-term therapy with a professor, with a therapist. He also is a professor that was able to really able to see me and able to support me and ground me. And I also took an independent study with a professor that did the same. She really got me together and was like, PJ, we're going to get this degree. So with those two really pushing me forward, I then reminded myself that this is what I need to do. I need to finish and get my degree because that's what I came to do.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I think both of your responses dovetail really nicely to the next question, which is, what are you learning concerning love, freedom, and self?
I'm learning that what I grew up, how I grew up thinking about love, freedom, and self is vastly different of how I'm approaching that now. Um, yeah. So, I grew up in a very patriarchal, religious environment. And uh, and then of course, coupling that with being in a country that kind of propels those same types of ideas made me kind of put, I don't know, like I have parameters around what I thought love was and what it looked like and all of these things. And so the older that I got and the more that I learned and experienced the world and had my daughter, that those things started to change for me. And I started to reevaluate what it meant. So yeah, for me, it's like, it's not stagnant, it changes for me. And I'm very aware of now, I'm very aware of the different levels of freedom, love, not just for me, but for other people. It helps me to be more connected and to be more open and willing to learn what other people, other people's ideas. And I think that helps me to grow. And it also helps me to kind of allow my daughter to have her space to kind of figure those things out without forcing what it means to me on her, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I have, growing up had a very complicated relationship with those things. And I'm working through that as an adult. And I like where I am now with it, but it took me a while to get here. And I still wrestle with things, like I have to catch myself like, oh, wait, no, oh, that, you can't put yourself in that category or in that box. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you hindering yourself in that way? Just, yeah. So, for me, it's just not remaining, unlearning that stagnation of freedom and the stagnation of love, of what love means, I should say. Yeah. And of self too, right? Like it all comes down to how I'm interacting with those two constructs as well. So yeah.
PJ? What do
Yeah,
you learning?
say again.
Oh, I was just about to repeat the question, but you can jump in.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I see these three words, love, freedom, and self, as very much connected at this point in my life. I feel like it's easy especially, earlier on, to have this like fixation with love, as we often are. In the Western culture, there is an emphasis on love and romantic love, even family love, but there's just like love, like we're all supposed to be in love or love something, or love. There's a love, maybe obsession, and then freedom. Um, Also, I think that there's like a particular notion around freedom. What does it mean to be free? Who actually is experiencing freedom? What do we name as, what is free? Or what language we use around that? And then self, I think that self is something that I think that was a given, like, oh, I know myself. Myself earlier on was really defined actually externally about what others mentioned about what myself was. And then I thought, so I had a good sense of myself, even though I hadn't, taken a step back to see if that was true, or if I want to maintain those ideas. So I think these things are all connected. They're not individual, actually. Like, what is love? And does love start with self? If we're loving ourselves, are we setting boundaries? And does that allow us to have freedom? If that's in your personal life with family members, is it at the career level, between colleagues, someone that's in the Black women space? I feel I've also found myself like just wanting to be in community, but sometimes we have to be wondering, like, does this feel good for me? Not everything is a fit. So it's like, if I have a sense of self-love, and I know that I don't need to force myself in any spaces or feel uncomfortable, that gives me my freedom of saying, hey, this isn't right, or maybe I need to reevaluate. So I think these things are all very much connected at this point, and I think they all need to be implemented together.
You posed a great question, PJ, that I'm gonna offer up, which is, does love begin with self? So would you say, PJ Michelle, do you believe that love begins with self? Or how is one to learn the love of self? Like, what would your answer be?
My initial answer would be, I do think that love begins with self. But when I think I think that it also depends on how one is defining love. I don't know. So I don't know if I can answer that on the spot like that. I think I need to think about that a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, but my first answer is yeah, it does.
PJ, you offered the question.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, I think I'm thinking about the verbs that go next to that. I'm like, yes, it has to. Yes, it should. Yes, it often doesn't, or so I'm thinking, yes, it has to. I think that, and this is my interpretation, of course, but I think that, like, when we give self-love, if we have self-love, we start there, then I think that blossoms out in the best forms. Um, so I think that's not always how we are encouraged to frame this. Does where does love come from, or who do you love, or what is love about? But I think it has to start with self.
Thank you. And thinking about Michelle, you stated that your mother and you want to model the experience of your daughter defining love for herself and you not like forcing definitions on her.
Mhm.
So in thinking about our connections to the younger generations, whether or not that's from a sister to sister perspective or a mother to daughter perspective, what would you offer younger sisters concerning freedom and self?
Making space to kind of do self-examination about who you are and what makes you happy and how that, and also understanding, I think it's important to understand the social historical aspect of where women in general and Black women specifically sit in the world and what the world is constantly bombarding at you of how you should be, how you should feel, how you should look, how you should, right? And what that looks like compared to who you are without all of that. But I don't think you can really know that unless you sit with yourself outside of it. And so just giving space to do that. I mean, listen, with a young teenage Black girl, it's something that it's hard, it's rough to it's rough to help. I'm not going to say help her navigate because I think, she's amazing and she navigates. Like, you wouldn't believe. I'm so proud of just the way she is. But also I see, right, the systems and everything kind of shooting arrows at her every day, which drives me nuts, but I can't. So I just have to watch the way she interacts with it, but also giving her the courage and also the knowledge to be who she is and unapologetically, and let her know that, that's who you are is who you are, and it's beautiful and it's awesome and it's all of those things. So yeah, I mean, I struggle with that on a daily basis just because I have a young daughter, and but I try all the time to just let her know, and then making sure that she's around not just me but other Black women, and she sees, like, all of these Black women doing amazing things and people speaking unapologetically about being who they are and being Black. And so I think that her seeing women who are so much older than her feeling comfortable in themselves and in their own spaces, but also still asking the questions and still, relying on each other, even though as grown-ups, as she would say, still understanding that you're not an island. You don't have to do all of this on your own. You can come to people, and it's okay to feel like, to have days where you're like questioning things, but you also have a support system that you can come to. Yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense, but that's how but that's what I try to give. That's what I try to give, not just to my daughter, but also to um, uh, anyone who specifically is younger, like her friends, or I work at a university. So I see young Black students come through all the time feeling unsure of themselves, and maybe I should bend this way. Maybe I should change, like what you said, PJ, I should change my research topic because they're saying that it may not be whatever, and it's like I always have to remind them, well, who's they? Why are you doing research for them, right? Or are you doing it for a different group of people? Maybe it's not for them, and that's okay. So yeah, I just try everything that I've learned through my life. I just try to give back to the younger people that I see, only because I know, what I went through, because I went through something very similar, PJ, with my dissertation topic. We're gonna talk about that offline, but yeah, it was rough. People talk, well, I don't know, plantation politics, I don't know how that's going to go over, it's like just, it's rough, but I think that we have to kind of give that, we've already fought those battles. So I think giving our stories to the younger people so that they can know that, number one, these are some ways you can fight the battles. Number two, they can be fought and won, instead of having people feel the same way that you felt when people are telling you no constantly, right? So, and I think that's freedom, is passing on those tools for battle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. PJ, what would you offer younger sisters concerning freedom and love?
Yeah, first I want to say, Michelle, I look forward to connecting further. And I appreciate your vulnerability. I would say I'll start with being an aunt. Sherella knows I'm an aunt. I was a very involved aunt as a teen. So I helped, raise my nieces, and now I have nieces and nephew. So I've been very involved, to the extent of like co-parenting, um, doing all the things, between taking care of a baby to having the conversations that are important, during certain developmental periods. And I think I was born with an ancestral idea of being curious and critical. I've, since a very young age, I've always wondered, like, is this true? When when someone is presenting something to me, um, so that is what I do spread on, and I think that's important for younger folks, especially sisters, and something I tell my niece, my nephew, like, we can tell you anything. The world has a lot of rules. Whether it is something legal, if it's something social, there are a lot of rules. But it's important for you to decide if that is true or what you believe regarding that. You can, I encourage them to live a life that does contribute to a greater community. But right, we have to see what makes sense, like what rules are real and what aren't, and like, I'm not saying do anything extreme or, be mindful. For example, I have to file my taxes. Okay, I'm going to do that. Um, what are the ways that, like, some people file their taxes and don't have to pay? What are the ways, and that's legal? And then some of us pay a bunch, So it's like, please learn the rules. You can respect the rules, follow the rules, but also know the capacity or the elements related to those rules, how they work, or how were they created, why they were created. So I think that's something that I've always had within me, and I like to pass on.
Mhm. Thank you. So, in thinking about being curious and critical, and also the importance of sharing stories so that folks have strategies to go to the battle and not only go, like you said, Michelle, but to win the battle. Are there conversations that you believe that we should be having regarding freedom and love with the older generations, right? So that could be our mamas, our aunties. What conversations do you think that we're not having, but we should be having concerning freedom and self?
So as you asked that question, I'm thinking about my mom and my aunts, right? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know what I would like to say, but I don't know if they listen because I feel like sometimes people just get so grounded in the ways that they did things and that they see the world that when they get to certain ages, they just are like, "Meh, it doesn't matter anymore to me." But, I've actually had my grandmother passed about 2 years ago. And I remember her saying, uh, she we were talking about the presidential election, and she was just like, that doesn't matter to me anymore. Just like this whole idea of like, whatever, I'm only here for a short time. But yeah, I don't know. That's tough for me. I think that's a tough question for me to answer because I know what I would say, but I don't know how well received it would be.
That makes sense. PJ?
Yeah, this is something I tend to do all the time. I'm trying to do with my great aunt who's still with us in the present. And I was trying to do with my grandma, before she had transitioned. And it is really, how did we get here? And I think that does speak to, for example, what the last question was. We're trying to pass down really important things. So a part of that is understanding certain histories. So I'm always asking these questions, and my paternal line is from Haiti, and my therapist is always reminding me that as the one that um, immigrated to this country and had to make certain decisions, they may be resistant to speak a lot about the history in the past. Um, for example, my grandma stayed in Haiti. She didn't like to be in the U.S. She visited plenty of times, um, but then her sister, my great aunt, does live here. So how do we get here? How do we, you're here in the U.S. and then, my great aunt, I mean, my grandma, she's in Haiti, and they had different careers. One was, of course, younger. So how do we get to this point? Like, I always try to ask about, I was having a conversation with my grandma about her earlier years. And I think it's very sad when we don't have, there hasn't been enough comfort and safety for the older generations to be able to open up like that. And what does that require for us to really have those conversations? does the family want me to be successful in my career, or in my love life, and how do we get there? Like, these values, these choices, these type of things, because that could help me out a lot if I knew, you know, you know, what was important to them. I'm someone that is not interested in having children. But my grandma had my aunt, my dad, and another aunt I have. And their lives look really different too. My dad being the only son, and the expectations on him vary a lot from my aunt's. And I'm always trying to understand those dynamics because I think it's really important.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just, as you were talking, I was like, yeah, some of the same types of dynamic. I mean, not, of course, not the exact same, but like the dynamics of silence is, I think, so real in the people of African diaspora. Like, it's like, you know, and it's kind of hard when you want to lean on that that ancestral knowledge, but you don't have it, but you desire it. Yeah, and I try to break that for sure. Like I try to break that cycle because I have that in my family too, especially on my mom's side. Everybody's like, you ask questions, and everyone's like, what? How come no one's talking about this? Everyone knows this happened. Can we please just discuss it? Yeah, so I just wanted to say I feel you on that for real.
That's interesting. I wonder if like our parents and our grandparents' generation believe that they had the time to converse. So I think now, like, even with talking to my mom, like her health history compared to my health history, like, oh, did you experience this when you were younger? Oh, I got diagnosed with this. Oh, yeah, I have fibroids, right? And like learning that later on in life. So, like, certain information that I wish I would have gotten younger. So that way, like, oh, I could just be more prepared if it did happen, or I just have this general knowledge, right? So I just wonder if the older generations believe that they had the time to talk because there feels to be the air of like I had to make sure that like my kids were okay. Like I didn't have time to consider myself. So like even in us saying like a part of love is practicing like self-reflection and self-examination. I'm just wondering if the older generations believe that they had the time, or if now if we say, can we create the time? Like would there be resistance, or what is that resistance? Like, does it mean like you're prying too much? Or I know some folks may see it as quote unquote disrespectful, right? Stay in a child's place. Like that kind of echoes that some folks have been learned to practice within their families. So I'm just wondering, like, what are some intergenerational, or pardon, some older generational rules to piggyback on PJ that they learned, that they adopted, that they're not even aware that they're still practicing, that may not and is not helpful when thinking about ancestral knowledge and passing it on. So yeah, it's just a question that I have.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I just want to also mention it's interesting that what you said made me think of, for example, I have a lot of cousins, Haitian cousins in New York, and in February was the first time I got to go with my partner. And again, so this is fresh off of our ceremony last year. And so some of my family members were meeting him for the first time in New York, but some do know him. I'll just say it was an interesting dynamic we're in the house, they're cooking, and then they're like, you need to go serve him. Go serve him. And they're picking the best food, the best pieces of meat, the best, to put on the plate and to serve him. And he's enjoying it. I'm not mad at it. But it's like, there's a level of like, okay, you're carrying on or practicing on cultural practices or ways in which we behave. At the same time, this is not how we conduct business at home. So it's like, we're talking about the way in which we exchange things throughout the generations. Interesting. It's like maybe there is an interest of them not sharing, or maybe us wanting to know, but also are we sharing back too? Like, am I saying, hey, I'm not going to serve him because that is not what we do together at our house. So anyways, that made me think of that too. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Agreed. I think in thinking back, like, what am I trying to teach the older generation? I think that is an interesting, like, am I speaking back? And also, how am I speaking back? I think there, on another episode with Dr. Tiara Evans, she talked about, like, as we get older, our working memory decreases. So, like, we're not going to expend the energy to learn something new if we don't want to. And also, if we have someone that can do it for us, right? So I think something is just with age, like, oh no, they don't want to talk about it. Like, they got other things like they want to conserve that energy for. So some of it is like, like biological, and thinking of like, oh well, I guess that what it means to age. Like, so in thinking about that, like, how do we, as we get older, create the space for our working memory to be more flexible?
Mm-hmm.
Is a question that I have after being in conversation with her. Like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Like, sometimes it may seem as a block or a barrier because literally psychologically it's there, because that's what happened if we don't put in certain practices, because no one tells us to, right? Like, no one is telling us, like, I would argue, like, how do we age well in society? Like, aging and being old is seen as something that, like, demonized, something that's not cool. Senior citizens, our elders aren't as privileged in certain spaces. We can look at the funding that they're given, for example, like so many indicators that say as you age, you're no longer as valuable, right? So I think that's a really important question to ask, PJ. And in thinking about our primary roles, right? So Michelle, you mentioned that your mother, both PJ and Michelle, you're researchers, aunts, scholars, your committed partner, PJ, and thinking about your primary roles, what is a reminder to circle back to yourself to feel grounded?
For me, I think about how live my life in whatever way that looks like every day, because I am an example to my daughter. And what do I want her to take from me? When I'm not here, what does that look like for her? And what can she pass on from me if she decides to have children, or if she's become, oh yeah, she's got a little brother. I was going to say if she becomes an aunt, she's got stepbrothers, so that could happen. Like, what could, just trying to be a good role model for her in every way that I possibly can, intellectually, as a Black woman, as a mother, as a member of society, the way I interact with people, the way the way I have learned to accept things that I would have never have the way I grew up, and the strength that took, because there were times where I was like, oh no, it's nothing, it's just, but I'm like, no, it was it took a lot of that's took guts and strength and intellectual, just everything to leave the situation that I left and to kind of create a new life of openness for me and her. Because I wanted her to have the space to be who she is, whatever that looks like. I don't know. I just basically, I look at her as I just put bumpers, like wide bumpers on her and let her kind of figure it out on the inside of those bumpers. But I don't tell her how to be or what to do, or, I'm just like, I'll protect you, but this is your life. I'm your mother and I'll tell you, well, I think this is a good idea. And I don't know what you think about that. But so yeah, I just try to be a good role model for her every day. And sometimes I'm not. And I give myself grace for that. And if I have to apologize to her and be like, you know what, I shouldn't have said that. Or, the way I behaved or what I said about that person wasn't very nice. I grew up in a time because there have been, she corrects me all the time, for like misgendering people, using the wrong pronouns, all the things. And I accept it. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. You're right. What should I have said? Or whatever. Because I didn't grow up. That wasn't my norm, right? Mostly because of the age that I grew up in. Grew up in like the 90s. Nobody was doing that in the 90s. So yeah, just showing her that you're never too old to learn, to continue learning and accepting. So
Thank you. PJ?
If we're talking about its primary roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking when thinking about that, I was thinking it's important for me, and it's always been important for me to explore what it is, like what is a role, like for example, like if one of my primary roles is scholarship or being a scholar, being a researcher, what does that mean for me, right? And am I accepting that, like I said, as it is, or am I exploring my own version of that? And I think that is really much what it means to practice liberation for myself and other community members. Being that one something that's really still currently top of mind is committing to my partner, and even a year after our commitment to each other, there were a lot of questions about like, oh, why do you call him your partner? Um, if I say, oh, we had a commitment ceremony or we committed to each other, we were like, what does that mean? Were you married? Did you get married? Are you? So these are some of the more traditional ideas and labels, roles that people take on. And so language is important to me. And I want my primary roles and the ways in which I'm showing up to be reflective based on how I have created and determined that that's what it is. And I once struggled with people not accepting or not supporting, or the majority not seeing those elements of what I've then defined for myself. So I now have less concern about that, you know. So my primary roles or how I define them, and I think that speaks to the type of freedom that I'm working towards.
Thank you. I asked these last questions, 2 questions that all the guests. How do you know if someone loves you?
Actions.
You should
Actions.
action.
Actions.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean,
PJ, I see you nodding your head.
No, I think that is spot on. And safety is really important to me. So feeling safe is I think a key element of that.
And connected to actions and safety. When do you feel like you're loving yourself the most? And I invite guests to bring in the senses, right? So, what does that look like, sound like, feel like? All of the senses that we can consider. When do you feel like you're loving yourself the most?
I'll let you go first, BJ. I need some time to think.
Sure. Okay, great. So for me, it's definitely when there aren't the focus is internal, there aren't external distractions. I consider myself an extrovert, and I like to do a lot of things and interact with a lot of folks, and um, in person as well as online. But like the quiet time, the time in which I'm doing what matters to me, feeding myself, practicing yoga, listening to music, the restorative practices that I'm doing for myself that isn't being seen, that don't have maybe obvious measurements or indicators. It wouldn't even be possible to post on social media, that I made a great meal and it tastes good and I spent a lot of time doing that. Or it's really the moments I think internally that I am spending with myself that don't matter to the world.
I love that. Yeah, I because as the first thing that came to me when the question was asked, 2 things actually. One was um, listening to music when I'm writing. 'Cause I have like this music that I listen to, and I don't know what it is, but gets me going. And that's one thing. I feel like, okay, I'm in my zone. I'm chilling. Um, Another thing is hanging out with my daughter. Uh, Usually like at home, like watching a movie. She's like really into like 80s movies, like Rocky. I don't know how she, but just like watching those types of things is like reliving my childhood with like watching those things, but also seeing it through her eyes. It's like um, those those moments too for me. Yeah.
Thank you. All righty. So we're going to round out. I'm going to ask for y'all social media. Before I ask for y'all social media in public spaces, are y'all working on any recent projects or services that you would like to share? So if you have like a website, for example, if you offer workshops, etc. I know PJ, I'm not sure if are you relaunching your business or
We're figuring that part out.
okay, cool. Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. So, are you working on any recent projects or services that you would like to share?
Well, I'm there are two things that I'm doing, and they're kind of connected. So I work closely with a colleague of mine, Dr. Anglecia Brown. We have the Rest and Resistance Collective, and we do workshops on bringing Black women together, Black women in higher education together. And we just do like activities and, little talks and grounding things and breathing and all of those things. And we do it like sometimes online to bring people together across different spaces like states or whatever. And then we also do it at academic conferences like AERA, UCEA, things like that. So, and it's been very well received. So that's one thing that I do. And then that led to a project that I'm working on with her, as well as Dr. Erica Edwards at Wayne State University. We're doing this multi-methods project, kind of merging traditional academic research into like textiles from historical African American roots. So it's in the works. We have we know what we want to do, but because we're kind of trying to mesh these two things together, it was still kind of hard to describe it in a way that makes it. But yeah, so I'm really excited about that project. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into that with them.
So speaking about those two projects, you said the Rest is Resistance Collective?
Rest and Resistance. Yeah.
Rest and Resistance Collective.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And also the multimedia project. Where can folks find you in the public space? Do you have a LinkedIn, etc.?
I have LinkedIn. I have LinkedIn. It's, I don't know, just Michelle D. Taylor on LinkedIn. I don't know. I'm on social media sometimes, but I don't post as much as a lot of other people might post, mainly because I don't know why. I just don't. But I'm there. I'm on LinkedIn. All the big stuff I post, all the major things I post there.
Okay, excellent. PJ, what about you? Are you working on any recent projects or services that you would like to share?
Yeah, I'm working on my next steps, and I'd say I encourage folks to stay tuned. And my page that I use on Instagram is Free Queen Collective, and that's been definitely a space of evolution from like a social enterprise business to more personal blog. As I come into more scholarship, I see myself as a free queen scholar. So that's something that I love folks to follow, the steps there. And then on LinkedIn, I'm under my name, PJ Pierre-Jerome, and that's where any of my specifically professional projects will be probably highlighted more. And you'll probably see a little personal, professional, both, me at Frequent Collective, but those are the two spaces that I'd love to share.
And can you share what? Oh, pardon.
Yeah, just details on whatever projects and next steps I'm working. Yeah.
Can you share what the Free Queens Collective brand is? Because I don't think you shared.
Sure. Yeah. And during my master's program, due to my challenges, and I was stepping away from some parts of school, I felt the need to create a sisterhood. And as someone that also, when I was living in Europe, couldn't find the right products for my hair, didn't know how to really manage my hair abroad, I started to practice head wrapping and taking on this practice. And I looked more into it. And when I found myself in this challenge in my master's program, I wanted to create time for sisters to connect and to also just learn about our ancestral practices like head wrapping and where does that come from and what form of resistance is that. So I started to host monthly head wrap happy hours, specifically throughout Baltimore at other Black-owned businesses. And so now that I'm in DC, I'm exploring what that would look like here in DC. And maintaining that connection with other sisters is really important to me, as a scholar, as a community member, and really for us to have space to be free, playing with our hair, playing with patterns, being ourselves, and not worrying about the rest of the world or outside world. So really just intimate space for us. So that's what I see Frequent Collective as, and I carry those values, like I said, as I become a frequent scholar, and I explore my next steps and what projects come my way.
Thank
I
you.
was gonna say I loved when you I love your head wrap right now. I was gonna ask you about it. It's so cute. I really love head wrapping. I went through my this phase, but I stopped because I just never knew how to do it well. And I'd see people do it, and I would be like, I want mine to look like that, but I never knew how to do it. So I just stopped doing it. So I love it. That's cool.
It's one of the, perhaps you can have that in your multimedia project too, head wrapping, when you talk about textiles within the Black
Yes.
community.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you again, sisters Michelle and PJ, for sharing your journey and reflections on love during this season in your lives. Thank you, sisters, supporters, and sponsors for listening to the Lirae Journey podcast. And as always, love is real and eternal. In community, peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey sis, subscribe, comment, and leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed the show. To encourage other sisters on their journey, share the show with them and tag @Lirae Journey on Facebook and Instagram. I'll see you in the chats. Listen to the Lirae Journey podcast on all platforms and follow us on social media @Lirae Journey. You can also find us online at podcast.mckissickhealth.com. That's podcast.mckissickhealth.com. So come on in.